I suck at jiu-jitsu. How do I suck less at jiu-jitsu?
I guess to suck less.
Ladies and gentlemen, the diabolical leader of the headlock squad,
All right, Matt Kwan, how are you doing, buddy?
Josh, great. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. It's been a while since we've gotten to talk on more than just Instagram DMs. You know, I want to say that our hairs were switched the last time that we talked. Feel like your hair was short and mine was long.
I mean, the thing about having long hair is it. By the way, I'm sorry I'm not in my studio right now. I'm just chilling on this big comfy chair. The thing about having long hair, I realized, is that it reveals just how much of my hairline I am losing year after year. And I noticed this the other day when a buddy was taking a picture of us in the gym after training, and he's kind of kneeling down, looking up at us, and he's like, "This will be a cool shot." And I look like this, and I'm like,
man.
I look completely fucking bald. Like, this is ridiculous. So yeah, and not only that, you know, I don't have long, luscious locks like you. I basically have like a frizzy afro. So it's like it doesn't go in the bun nice and smooth. So I don't know. I'm thinking about cutting it, but there's some kind of power that comes along with having long hair, I think.
I completely agree with that. I cut mine a year and a half ago and I regret it for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you regret? But I mean, you kind of still have long hair. Like,
I've kind of been growing it out again. I don't think it takes too much commitment though. I've got 6 months of horrible hair to go through before it starts to even kind of look cool. And so I'm probably going to get a haircut again next week. But
yeah,
for example, you shared a reel of me talking and I had cool hair. And I was so sad when I watched that reel. I was like, dude, that would have been so much cooler. Why did you cut it?
Why did you cut it?
You know,
grass is always greener or what?
It was just like, I mean, I'd never had any type of long hair in my life. And it was just like, I wanted to see how it looked. And then it was kind of the upkeep of having it. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm tired of it. Maybe this isn't the move. My brother also, I mean, his hair was like mid back length. He had super long hair. And so we were kind of at the same time talking about it. But both of us agree that like, yeah, every day I'll have at least one thought of like, man, remember when I used to have cool hair?
For sure. But you got to be honest, it's so much easier to train with short hair, man.
It is.
When you have long hair, like every round I'm tying it back up again, and someone puts you in a front headlock and then you escape and you just look ridiculous for the rest of the round. And like if you go into a tournament with a man bun and you're in a war and someone's yanking on your head, and then after you get your hand raised, you look like a fucking idiot. I'm just like, I don't want to look like that. And then if I don't, so I did a couple tournaments where I just kind of embraced the fro, but the thing is if somebody is in like, let's say, I mean, I'm lucky I don't end up in this position too often, but if someone's in like a north-south position and they're kneeling on your hair, you can't move your goddamn head without ripping your hair. So there's a cost for everything, right? But I think it looks coolest when I come out of the shower or come out of the pool and it's just like, I feel like a pro wrestler. It's pretty sweet.
That's probably why I wanted to grow out my hair. Was like, man, maybe people would think that I'm Shawn Michaels, I just
Were you a pro wrestling fan?
Oh my gosh. Come on, man. I think I like every pro wrestling meme that you share.
Probably. Who is your favorite?
I mean, I think it depends on the era, but I would say overall, big DX fan, I would probably go Shawn Michaels.
It's so funny, I've for many years it was Shawn Michaels for me. I think in ring performance, it's hard to argue that he is like top 3. Like, he is so athletic and just so great. But I don't know about you. Like I have Netflix, and Netflix and WWE are now partners, and you can go back and watch like the majority of the old Raw episodes, the SmackDowns, like all the pay-per-views. So I try after Survivor Series came to Vancouver in November, I started getting back into the current stuff.
Uh-huh.
It's fucking hard to watch in my opinion.
Yeah.
I've really tried, but it's just not the same, even though I know WWE is like huge right now. I find myself going back in time and watching the Raw episodes, and I'm like watching right when I basically first started. Like I'm coming up to the point, which was SummerSlam '98, the first pay-per-view I ever watched, the first event I ever watched. It was Stone Cold and Undertaker in Madison Square Garden. This was like pretty recently after Stone Cold beats Michaels at WrestleMania. And so I'm watching it, and I'm watching DX be formed and all this stuff. And I'm thinking like, man, Michaels was a fucking asshole.
Oh my gosh.
He was such an asshole, and like dancing around like this Chippendale. And I mean, like, it's pretty sus, to be honest, now that I look back at his angle. And he got a lot of flack for it. Like a lot of the fans would be chanting like Sean is explicit, and Sean is gay and all this stuff. And it's funny. But he can't be denied as one of the greatest of all time. So I think that's a reasonable pick for sure.
Who do you got? Who's your number one? Who's the and why is it Bret Hart?
No, it's not Bret Hart, dude. It's not. I actually was never a Bret Hart fan. I think one of the most underrated of all time is Owen Hart, actually. Bret Hart is undeniably like excellent in the cage, or in the ring, I should say. He's so technical in a very different style from like a Shawn Michaels. And obviously they had their rivalry, but man, to be totally honest, like I have a really soft spot for Kane, man. I love Kane. He was just the mystique around Kane. I mean, when he had a mask, when he took the mask off and he was just this weird looking guy, I was like, okay, I don't know. But I love Kane. I love Shawn Michaels. I love Austin, even though I don't agree with, he like abused a couple of his wives or whatever. That's kind of shitty, but
hey, we're just talking about the art here,
Yeah. Well, hey, like I love Chris Benoit too. Like Chris Benoit.
I don't think you can say that. I don't think you're allowed to.
Yeah, he just went a little crazy at the end there, but he actually Chris Benoit, as far as like in-ring talent, is one of the greatest of all time. It's just he just fucking obviously, such a dark finish to his career and his life. It's so unfortunate that it just is what it is. Fuck, CTE is a hell of a thing, right? Mm-hmm. And all the drug abuse and all the steroid abuse. Have you ever watched Dark Side of the Ring?
I was just about to bring up. Have you ever seen the Dark Side of the Ring with Chris Benoit?
Of course. I mean, I've watched it, and man, it's really disturbing stuff. But everybody that they talk to about Chris Benoit, they're like, he loved his family. He was a family man. He gave everything to professional wrestling, and part of me wonders, like, is it demons? Like, did his spirit get hijacked? Like, I'm not a religious guy, but I am, since I've had children, I am a little bit more spiritual in a way, like thinking about these ideas. And, you wonder, like, did his soul get hijacked? Was it just a brain trauma? Because I think they did an autopsy on his brain and it was like oatmeal, basically. It was just it's a real tragic thing. Like, I used to want to be a pro wrestler when I was a kid. I was so into it. Me and my buddies we're like tombstoning each other on the trampoline in the backyard, and like so awesome, right? But then I'm so fortunate I didn't actually pursue a career in that, because it's like, if you watch Dark Side of the Ring and you see what these guys go through and the lifestyle and how it wears on them and their families, I mean, I wouldn't wish that life upon anyone. It is incredibly difficult. And the WWE has now sort of taken a shift towards, more family stuff. I guess they're trying to limit things like drugs and steroids and crazy parties, and we don't really see that side of it. But at the same time, I think it also reflects the value of the entertainment that we get out of them now, because it's nowhere near what it used to be, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's a love-hate relationship that I have with pro wrestling, but man, I'll put on Raw episodes a couple times a week, and it's just so like relaxing for me to watch. Like, I don't know, I love turning my brain off and just it's such a soap opera, right? It's such a play, and it's
Mm.
fun. That's like my version of like Desperate Housewives, right? Women watch Desperate Housewives and they get to just look at other people and turn their brain off and watch something stupid. And that's kind of what I like to do too.
Yeah, man, I completely agree. I think that the storytelling of it is you can definitely see similarities from basically every reality show, but it also is there is a level of storytelling in the ring that goes on that can be really, really beautiful too. You know, that there is
Hmm.
like, oh man, the guy landed on his leg. Oh, now he's limping. And now
Yeah.
his opponent is slamming his leg into the turnbuckle like that would, cause more
Yeah.
more damage to your
No, I
completely
know.
torn ACL. But
Oh, I know.
just seeing like seeing on the topic of Chris Benoit still is like seeing the on that documentary people talking about how much he was affected by Eddie Guerrero dying,
I
and
know.
that
That
was
was a big thing
super.
for him.
Yeah, and that was super sad to see too, is to see that like, because that really is onto your point of like how hard that is on your body and how hard wrestling is. These guys perform, they go 250 nights a year. To think like
It's crazy.
even if you're a jujitsu coach teaching 250 classes a year, that's a good amount of classes. But to travel and then get to a place and then do a 10, whatever, 15-minute in ring performance that is super athletic and super explosively based, that's going to break down your body. And then on top of the industry just being so wild, like, that's probably not a good place to, maybe now it is. But I don't know if you've watched the Vince McMahon documentary, but
Oh, hell yeah.
I
Of
figured,
course I have.
but man, that is a crazy industry to be in.
Yeah, and you're talking about that many days a year. Like we're talking constant traveling, being away from your family, never really having like a home base in a solidified way. Like you don't get to go home every night. Plus the workouts, like you gotta be jacked. You gotta
Mhm.
be lifting weights constantly. I think the guys nowadays aren't generally as ridiculously large as they used to be. Obviously, there's a couple guys that are just huge,
Mhm.
but they don't emphasize size as much. So before it used to be like the biggest guys would get the biggest pushes. Like it was a lot more about physique. Now physique is important, but like these guys before are pumping weights multiple times a day. They're pumping weights before they go out there, so they look even bigger. And they got to practice, they got to rehearse. Like there's tons of work that goes into it that we don't understand. And so like a lot of people don't appreciate it because it's choreographed, but that doesn't mean it's not real.
Yeah.
Like it's predetermined, but everything you see when they're jumping off the balcony and landing on a dude who's on a table, like man, they're actually doing that shit when they're falling off a ladder and sometimes injuries do happen. It's crazy. So I appreciate the spectacle of it for sure. Even Survivor Series in Vancouver, that was the first time I saw it live in like 2 decades basically. And that it was pretty disappointing. I'm not gonna lie.
Really.
It was one of the worst shows ever that I've ever seen. Like what was it, an elimination chamber? Or no, it wasn't the elimination chamber. Can't remember what it was. It wasn't Hell in a Cell, but it was like, yeah, they're like coming to the ring and getting released from these like chambers or whatever, and it was awful, man. It was so hard to watch, like the taking chair shots that weren't even there, and uh, it was tough. It's tough to watch nowadays for me, but the old shit is just timeless, right? You watch the legends, seeing like The Rock and Triple H come up through the ranks is pretty special. But okay, Vince McMahon. Let's just quickly talk about Vince McMahon here. Describe him in 3 words. It's
I
fucking
don't,
hard, man.
there are a lot of words that I can use,
Oh, I know.
but he really was. That is like everything
That's
that you saw.
him.
Yeah, everything that you saw on
Yeah.
TV was real. Like that dude was doing
Yeah.
it times 10. One of my students and I were talking about it not long ago, and he's like, someone was asking me, like, are you like appalled now that you've been a wrestling fan for so long? And he goes, I'm just shocked that everybody else is so shocked. Wait, you're telling me
Yeah.
that the 70-year-old guy who pretends to be cheating on his wife on national TV every single weekend with his own name as the CEO of this company was
I know.
actually doing it? He's like, no, I wasn't surprised at all.
Oh, I know, totally. And it's funny, like Vince used to be just like a color commentator, and you didn't know that he was the owner of the company for a while. But then after the screw job, this is like right after the Montreal screw job, that's when he really started playing the evil angle, right? He
Mhm.
basically started playing himself.
Yeah.
And he was really competing with WCW at the time. And WCW used to be like the edgy wrestling brand. And then if you watch the Vince McMahon documentary, you find out how he basically hijacked that angle. And that's where the Attitude Era was born. And he started these feuds with these pro wrestlers. He became more of a character rather than just a commentator. When he was a commentator, he was playing like a straight laced guy,
Yep.
And then after, when he started, he screwed over Brett and all that stuff. And then he
Hey,
started beefing with
Brett
Austin.
screwed Brett. Okay.
That's true. And also Stone Cold screwed Stone Cold. But like Vince is like, everybody loves to hate him. They love to hate him on the screen and they love to hate him off the screen. What he has done for pro wrestling is it's immeasurable, what he's done for pro wrestling. And has it been ethical? Never. It's never
Yeah.
been ethical from when he kind of took over the small regional shows and unified it and kind of went against the gentleman's agreement that his father had with these other wrestling promotions. And he just said, well, this is competition. You're going to compete with me. And if, you're going to lose.
Mhm.
And, man, love him or hate him, you just got to respect him because he is so driven. Anyone you talk to, he works harder than anyone. And man, he had a fantastic product that really brought, like, wrestling wouldn't be where wrestling is without Vince McMahon. Is he a piece of shit? Yes. So we know he's not ethical in many, many ways. And he'll be the first to tell you that he's innocent. He always plays the innocent card whenever he's in like court or whenever he's in camera. I never did anything wrong. Like, I don't understand where these accusations are coming from. But yeah, like he's the perfect villain. Love to hate Vince. Vince is a legend. And yeah, he always will be.
You know that there are talks that he is going to sign with some national TV network and they're going to bring on their own executives and he is going to run a new show. And
I
this, I mean,
heard that.
this has been a conspiracy for like since he got fired, but it still gets like, oh yeah, people are talking about that he met that last I heard that they claimed that he's been meeting with Fox and that
Yeah,
they're supposed to do a run. And
man, I
I
would
would
watch
watch
it
it.
for
Yep,
sure.
I would watch it, no doubt.
Like dude, why can't this guy just like ride off into the sunset? Why can't he? He's that fucking driven. He cannot stop producing. He's got the mindset of like a warlord from hundreds of years ago. Like he's
Yeah.
obsessed with conquest. I don't even know if the guy sleeps. It's insane, and he's just not willing to give up. Like he can't be stopped. And like I said, love him or hate him, there's aspects to Vince McMahon that you just have to sit back and go, wow, like man, they don't make him like that anymore, right? Like
Hmm.
again, another guy who you could love to hate, who is friends with Vince McMahon and is hated on maybe the same level or obviously way worse than Vince McMahon, is Trump. And Trump, he said a quote the other day. He was talking shit about Biden at the beach. It was just like, for those who are listening, if you get triggered by Trump, just skip ahead like 2 minutes. It's not for you. He's saying, "Oh, I don't know how Joe Biden can go to the beach and fall asleep." Like, and then there's footage of Biden at the beach, and he's just like dozing off in the chair. And Trump's like, "I never sleep." I
Yeah.
don't know how he can go somewhere and sleep. People who love what they do don't sleep.
Mhm.
They don't get a lot of sleep because they love what they do. And I was like, man, that's a great quote. Like that is a quote, love him or hate him. Like, it's inspiring because it makes me want to be hungry. It makes me think like, man, I could be doing more right now. I should be doing more right now. I should be working harder. And so these crazy figures in history that do these horrible things, it's like, well, try to admire the things that they accomplish and the things that they can get done. Like Attila the Hun isn't a good man, but he was a great man. Same with like Genghis Khan and all these guys who are murderers and raped and pillaged. It's like they're great, not in the sense that they're good people, but they're great in that, like, wow, they can move the needle. They can change history forever, right? And I'm a big history guy, so whenever I see these figures in history, I like to take the lessons that they learn, that they've given us as learning lessons for our present day. By the way, if you never heard of it, there's a show called How to Take Over the World. Amazing podcast. Guy basically does just that. Goes over and talks about historical figures and the main lessons that we can take away from them and become more effective in today's life. It's very fascinating. One of my
Okay.
favorite podcasts.
This episode is brought to you by Datsusara. So I've had my 45-liter Datsusara backpack for about 3 months, a little over 3 months now, and I have used it every single day. I've used it on about 3 different trips now, and I cannot stress to you guys enough how much it seems like this bag was actually designed for me as a jiu-jitsu enthusiast, as somebody that has a belt, has athletic tape, has their gis, has their no-gi stuff, has all of the different toiletries that are required if this gym that I'm going to is going to have a shower. It really does seem as though they really had me in mind when they designed this bag, and I think you will feel the exact same way when you purchase one of the Datsusara bags. The beauty of this bag too is after about 100 days of use every single day, and I just beat any product that I have into the ground, there seems to be no signs of use at all on this bag. This bag looks exactly the same way that it did and smells exactly the same way that it did the day that I got it. And this is because of the hemp blend that they use. It is ultra durable, it is antimicrobial, and of course, I've told you guys they use these YKK zippers, the best zippers that you can put on a bag, the best zippers you can put on anything. And you just feel that quality. You can absolutely tell how high quality this product is. I'm getting all these tags from you guys who have been purchasing your Datsusara bag, your different Datsusara product. And I just want to tell you guys, I greatly appreciate it. And I know Datsusara greatly appreciates the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show, and that is why they have a coupon code for you guys. If you use promo code ISUCK at checkout, you can get 10% off anything in the store. Just go to dsgear.com, check out their entire product list. But man, I cannot recommend these bags to you guys enough. This really was designed with a jiu-jitsu enthusiast in mind. Why not buy a gym bag that is going to last you an entire lifetime? Again, go to dsgear.com and use promo code ISUCK at checkout. Yeah, that is super interesting to see, is people that just have this unlimited ferocity for whatever it is. Because I love jiu-jitsu, but I love a nap too, man.
Yeah.
And it's like to see somebody that has, and I have friends that maybe not on that level, but that have that sleeplessness about whatever business they're in or whatever. And I'm
Yeah.
like, man, how can you be so into this? How can it be all that matters? But for certain people, it is all that matters. There's in the Vince McMahon documentary, Paulie Heyman says, did Vince McMahon ever cheat on the love of his life? And then he's like, absolutely not. And then he
That's
begins
pro
to
wrestling.
describe, yep, begins to describe the love of Vince's life. And he's like,
Yeah.
it's pro wrestling, it's the WWE, it's the organization. And he's like, and he would never cheat on the organization. He would never, he's like, every thought comes from about the business.
Yep.
And it is incredible to see somebody that is like that. But they also say that oftentimes your greatest strengths are your greatest weaknesses. And you
Yes.
see people like that, that their obsession is this greatness that they could achieve. And a lot of things that they wish they could have had in life kind of have to fall by the wayside because of that. And so you definitely can see both sides
Mhm.
when it comes to that. But on the note of professional wrestling, this is like my big thing with when I always talk about competitive jujitsu to people is like competitive jujitsu is pro wrestling in a sense. The art when they actually get on the mat is a completely different thing. And there isn't a
Mhm.
predetermined winner, but the selling of a match is just that. It is a storyline. These guys
Yep.
hate each other because one guy tweeted about this and the other guy responded. And it's like,
Yeah.
and that brings people in. So on that same note, tell me about this Primal Combat match that you have coming up.
I'm so glad you brought that up. So, for those who don't know, there's an ex UFC fighter named Cajun Johnson. I mean, just so everybody knows, like, I do not hate Cajun Johnson. I respect him for going to the UFC, but he'll never beat me in a jiu-jitsu match. And he's taking some things real personally. Like, as of 2 days ago, he posted this video where someone posted a video that went viral where Cajun like face palmed this guy. And all the MMA guys are like, "Oh, jiu-jitsu's so soft." Everyone's getting pissed. And then there's buddies of mine and people I know saying, "If this was my gym owner, I would leave the gym. This is a disgrace." It's just like this polarizing thing, right? And I'm just here's my true opinion on it. If you get offended by a face palm in a grappling match, you're a fucking pussy. Like,
Oh yeah.
you shouldn't be competing. Like, have you ever seen ADCC? These guys are clubbing each other. Like, that's grappling. I'm sorry. And I've been in matches where I get slapped and clubbed, and let it fuel you. Like, don't go and bitch about it. I mean, you can look at the ref and look for penalties and all that stuff. Like, IBJJF is more like formal,
Mhm.
you will get penalized for that. But ADCC, I mean, it's all fair. This is submission fighting, right? So I don't think he even did anything wrong. But I'm a piece of shit. I'm a troll. So and man, I make my sense of humor is like I'm basically as edgy as a comedian. You know what I mean? Like, and I shouldn't be because I'm a business owner and it looks unprofessional at times, but like I got a sense of humor that gets me in trouble. Okay. And I basically just go on there and I say, "Hey, next time just enter his legs." We know how that happens with Cajun because he was in a tournament like a year ago. I actually lost in the finals. I got choked out by my buddy Lucas. But and that was painful. But in the leading up to it, Cajun was talking about he was in the tournament. He's like, I'm gonna smoke everyone and I'm gonna run through this division. I'm gonna destroy everyone because I have this new style called Primal Combat. And I'm like, he's giving me shit because we had just fought a couple weeks prior to the event in the gi, and I beat him by like 2 points. He's got a really good base. He's hard to sweep, and he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna run through this division, and I'm gonna expose these BJJ guys who pull guard and who only do leg locks and all this stuff, and I'm like, well, I had to take that personally, you know what I mean? Because I pull guard and I like leg locks, and I'm like, so I fire back and I'm like, yo, like your jujitsu sucks. Like, I don't care if you're a black belt under Faraz or whoever you're under. I don't care if you trained in the blue basement. Like, you'll never beat me in jujitsu. I'm gonna fucking break you if you even get past the first round. You have to get past the first round to get to me. And he lost his first match. He got knee barred by Daniel Richards from a flying scissor. And so there was definitely some animosity there. And then after I went up to him and I was like, "Yo, man, like, I respect you. You're a UFC fighter. Like, you're from a small town in British Columbia called Prince George and you made it to the UFC. I respect you." And he's like, "Thanks, man. But I'm still going to fucking kick your ass and all this shit." I'm like, "All right. Like, you're just like like CTE big time, right? And so anyways, I comment on there and I say, yeah, just enter his legs. We know how that goes. And then he fires back. And then he's like, I'm challenging you to a primal combat match. All strikes legal, all attacks legal, concrete floor. There has to be one hard wall.
One
I'm like,
concrete wall.
yeah, one hard wall. I'm like, this is pro wrestling. Like, I love this shit. Like, I love conflict. You know what I mean? Like, um I'm not gonna go and say that I'm like an alpha male because that sounds like a totally douchebag thing to say. People think you're alpha, you're this big like macho dude. But I don't think that's what alpha means. I think alpha means like you have an insatiable hunger for conquest and accomplishment, and you are meant to lead, right? And like I'm a teacher. I'm always teaching in front of groups of kids and adults. So like for me, I almost fit that bill. And like I'm not afraid of conflict, right? I don't care if you're an MMA fighter. Like if you try to knock me out on the street, like it's gonna go to the courts. You know what I mean? Like I'm not here to. And I said, Cajun, I'm not an MMA fighter. Like the dumbest thing I could do is to fight you in a real fight. First of all, I don't hate you.
Yeah.
And I don't want to hurt anyone, but let's do a grappling match. And how about the winner gets to shave the other person's head? And obviously he doesn't want to do that because he knows I'm going to sub him, right? I said, let's go no time limit. Let's give the people what they want to see. They want to see this. Like we need to do a no-gi match, sub only, and you're going to get fucked up and I'm going to shave your head. And then he just doubles down. No, here are the rules. All strikes legal. And I'm just like, holy shit, dude. Like, whatever. I'm just having fun with it. And I honestly wish Cajun all the best. But yeah, he's like making videos where he's going to my gym and like knocking on the door. And dude, I love it. I live for this shit. Like, I think it's super entertaining. And I think I had so many people messaging me being like, this is the most entertainment in local jiu-jitsu I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, thank you for this. And I'm like, man, like, how is this bad? You know? But I think he's actually pretty upset. Like, he responded to me today on Instagram and he's like, you think this is fucking funny? Let's see if you think it's funny when there's no keyboard or no referee or whatever. And then I doubled back and I said, what did I comment? I said, yeah, I do have to be careful. I don't want you to dig up a meme that I posted when I was 17 and get me canceled like you did on that guy on The Ultimate Fighter and ruined his chances of getting in the UFC. Because he actually did that. He dug up this guy's meme. He made a racist meme. This guy is a person of color, so I mean, should be able to make a racist meme, right? if you're going to follow that ideology, right? But Cajun dug it up, and man, the UFC said this guy's never getting a contract because of this racist meme. And I'm like, yeah, well, you ruined that guy's chances of getting in the UFC. Wouldn't want that to happen to me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like trolling him so hard, right? So I love it. It's just, for me, it's fun. But yeah, he might knock me out. He might try and knock me out at a tournament. We'll see what happens.
What do you think the chances are that you guys actually get to have a match?
Oh, if he signed, so he just did a Grappling Industries last Saturday in Vancouver. And I was flying in from a family vacation in Mexico. I was gone for a week. We went to Mexico, so I wasn't able to be at that tournament. But 100%, if I ever see him in a division, I'm jumping in. Like, I'm trying to get a grappling match with him. But he'll never catch me in an MMA match. Like, that's just, I'm 37. He's 40. He's was a pro MMA fighter. Like, come on, I'm smarter than that. Like I have nothing to gain and everything to lose by having a fist fight with another person, you know?
Of course.
If I was gonna do MMA, I would have done it, 10 years ago when I had started jiu-jitsu when I was younger. But it's ridiculous to try and do something like that right now, and that's where I sort of draw the line. And I promised my wife, I was like, I'm never gonna do a fist fight. Like, you never have to worry about that. I value my brain too much, and I love jujitsu. My martial arts, my martial art of choice is grappling, and I want to express my skill through grappling. I don't need to punch people in the face to out grapple them, and he does, and he knows that, and that's why he won't put his hair on the line and grapple me. He won't take that match. But how sick would that be? Like, we do it at his gym or my gym. We stream it, and we, we grapple, no time limit. Let's go. And we shave each other's head. Fuck, that would be so awesome,
That
right?
would
Wouldn't that?
be that
It'd
would
go
be
viral.
amazing. That would be
Yeah,
amazing. I
it would.
love that the loser shaves. I saw not long ago there was supposed to be a girls' jujitsu match, and I think the winner got to slap the loser in the face like 3 times or something. And that was how like
That's so good.
they had some type of beef. And so that was like the stipulation, I guess, of like, oh yeah, that's how you and I think again, though, that is what sells matches. The idea
Yeah,
that submissions are like, oh, that's what the fans want to see. If there's submissions on this card, they're going to tune into the next one. It doesn't
yeah,
work that way. People in every single, you don't watch a movie just because of the conclusion. You watch a movie because of the
yeah.
storytelling of it. And the
Mhm.
fact that a there is beef that can be told. That is the type of thing that you go to the gym and you go, hey, did you hear about those 2 Canadian guys? And you're like, oh, the shave your head match? Yeah, absolutely. And
Exactly.
that's like, that is the what there are a few guys that understand this in the professional jujitsu space, but that seems to be what jujitsu is missing so much is these guys kind of have this thought of like, it's just about being the best grappler. Like, yeah, for a tournament, it is just about being the best grappler. But when you're doing these pro shows where people are getting paid to show and then people are buying pay-per-views to watch it, it is about the storyline. That is what the reason that people tuned in so much to Felipe versus Gordon is
Oh yeah.
because the storyline was that Felipe is the only guy to beat him. That is an amazing
Mhm.
storyline. It's like, yeah,
Yep.
this guy can't be beaten except by this other guy. And it wasn't that Felipe had beaten everybody else since then. He had lost to guys that Gordon had thrashed, but it was just
Yeah.
the excitement of like, oh, but the storyline they have beef, they hate each other, they talk trash on Instagram. This is what we want to see.
People talk so much shit about Gordon and Marigali. They're like, oh, Marigali is like trying to be like Gordon. And I'm like, and they're like, I can't stand them. They're bad for the sport. And I'm like, are you guys kidding me? These guys are awesome for the sport. Like,
Mhm.
it's so much more entertaining when you have a guy who goes in there and he's like, I'm so good. I'm going to beat everybody. What submission do you want to see in the finals? Blah, blah, blah. And then he goes out there and he gets his shoulder broken off an Uchimata. And you're like, the biggest upset almost of all time. And you're like that type of stuff, it makes it so entertaining. And like, that's something that I think the IBJJF could use, like, did you watch Pans last week?
I mean, I watched a couple of matches, but I wasn't like
You watched
watching
the
pins.
finals, right? You watched the finals.
Let's even say I watched 30% of the finals. That's about what
I'm
I watch.
That's exactly what I did too. And
Hmm.
and it's because nobody gives a fuck. Okay.
Hmm.
Like IBJJF has a business model. Like Carlos Gracie Jr., I think he owns it. Like he's kind of like a Vince McMahon in the way, like he owns this empire and makes a shitload of money. And but the thing is, he's not willing to give the athletes like what they deserve, right? Like
Hmm.
he's just like, it's all my money. I built this. It's the Gracie family, blah, blah, blah. You're gonna sign up because you want to compete in the gi.
Hmm.
Um, and then they have guys like, and again, no shade throwing at these guys because I respect them incredibly as martial artists, but Abate and Pato closing out. And it's just like, man, it fucking ruins the event when you have the two best guys and they refuse to fight in the finals. And it just ruins the event. There's a reason why ADCC doesn't let that shit happen. And if you watched the pans or the finals or whatever, it is so dry. It is like Tynan beats Andy Murasaki for like the 10th time, wins the pans. There's no celebration. There's no emotion. The crowd is literally silent.
And the crowd was small.
It's so small, dude. And your 2025 Pan Champ, Tynan Dolpra, and like no crowd response at all. I'm watching this and I'm just like, this is like when I'm not shitting you, Josh, when I have two of my gray belt students fighting in a local jiu-jitsu tournament, I get about 10 times more amped watching those kids than getting excited about the black belt finals at the Pans. Like, at least have the same level of production as when they do the worlds. Like, at least when they do the worlds, they do a little bit more special camera stuff and they hype it up a little bit. But then you're going to have guys closing out because there's no real penalty, right? Why is there no penalty? Because there's no purse, right? If there's a purse on the line, then what they can do is they can withhold the purse from the athletes. But the thing is these athletes are paying to register. So there's no incentive for them not to close out. So they don't have to not, they don't have to not close out. They can do it whenever they want. So yeah, it's just IBJJF will never go away. In fact, it's probably only growing because I think the sport is only growing. But from a spectator point of view, there's no storyline whatsoever. It's dry. Nobody even cares who wins in the finals. Like, that's a problem, just from a spectator point of view. Like, at least with ADCC, you'd have Gordon talking all this shit. I'm taking 2 matches in the same weekend. I'm going to fight Pena. We have a history. Like, that's what people actually want to tune in and watch. Like, everyone wants to see Gordon fight Craig. Everybody wants to see Gordon fight Nikki. The shitty thing is there's no reason for Gordon to take those matches now because he's the best. So he doesn't have to take any matches that he doesn't want to. He's got all the leverage, right? So we'll probably never see those matches, unfortunately. But I agree. Like, we need more of that kind of beef. And that's why when I stir shit up online and I can see that I'm clearly irritating this guy and he's getting upset and I'm just like making it a joke, which pisses him off even more. I mean, it's just like, let's grapple, man. Let's set this up and let's get some eyes on us. He's got a YouTube channel that's like doing way better than mine, which if he wanted to hurt my feelings, that's what he should say. He should talk about followers and subscription. I would be like, damn, you got me. Like,
you win.
That's like the best diss he could give me, is why don't we compare YouTube followers? I'd be like, fuck. By the way, guys, subscribe to my YouTube, please. Give me some likes, give me some followers.
I think that same thing. Somebody asked me on like a Q&A episode of the podcast recently, what could fix the gi? What could get the gi as hot as no gi is right now? And to me, again, it's not the sport, but if you get a non-Brazilian, if you would have gotten Nolan Stewart, who won, I think, super heavyweight at Pans this year, not a lot of white dudes are winning that division. Goes and wins it. He grabs the mic in the interview and he says, all of these Brazilians are scum. And then he starts making the crowd chant, build that wall. Build that wall. He throws on his MAGA hat. I guarantee you next tournament that he signs up for would be the most watched tournament. Because just to your point about Gordon and Marigali, is those guys they are happy to play the bad guy because you can't have a good guy without a bad guy. You can't be rooting for, it's like, we're rooting for, like two of the same pretty much, it's all about respect. It's all about respect. And that's like everything everybody's saying. I don't care about that. Give me a guy to at least root against, give me somebody to give me a reason to want to watch that. And you need that villain. That's really what Gordon did, was he won EBI, which the tournament was irrelevant to anybody. No one cared about EBI until Gordon got on the mic and said, all these Brazilians are afraid of me. I'll beat every single one of them. He starts calling them out on Instagram and everybody goes, either 1, I love what this guy stands for and I want to see him win, or 2, I hate this guy with a passion and I want to see him lose. But both characters want to see him. You want to watch him compete. This episode is brought to you by BJJ Mental Models Premium. Right now, BJJ Mental Models Premium is giving I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show listeners a free gift. Imagine if you could boil all of jiu-jitsu down into 6 simple, easy to understand ideas. every single thing that you see in a jiu-jitsu round into these 6 simple ideas. Well, that is what BJJ Mental Models is giving to you guys for absolutely free. They partnered with Rob Bernacki, and they started to put together one of the best conceptual frameworks that I've ever seen when it comes to jiu-jitsu. And it is this course called Jiu-Jitsu for Imbeciles. This is available completely free at bjjmentalmodels.com/ISuck. And again, this is an exclusive for I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show listeners. BJJ Jiu-Jitsu for Imbeciles by Rob Bernacki. It's completely free, and it will change the way that you look at jiu-jitsu. You guys absolutely should check it out. Let's get back to the episode.
You're absolutely correct, Josh. Like that entertainment factor is definitely what we're missing. Like they don't mic up any of the victors. Like they don't get to go in and say a speech or anything. And IBJJF is just, they're trying so hard to be formal that it's annoying. Like this isn't fucking judo, guys. This isn't Olympic judo. This is jujitsu. This should be a little bit more new age and a little bit more informal. Like there's a reason why ADCC Opens have like 1,300 competitors, and IBJJ, some of the IBJJF Opens have like 600 competitors. You're not letting people compete because their gi thread count is 350 instead of 380, or their patch is like a centimeter too low. Or their belt is a little bit tattered. It's like, and then they got to go and like buy a new gi or buy a new belt, or else they can't compete. Like I remember I got through gi check. I was actually doing a no gi tournament in Portland a couple years ago, and I got through, and I'm waiting to go on the mats. And they're like, the referee, before he calls me on, he's like, wait a minute, you can't compete. I'm like, why? He's like, your rash guard has gray on it, and it can only have black or white. And I'm like, I got through gi check. He's like, I'm the final gi check. And I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. So I had to use one of my buddy's rash guards. He had already competed, and the thing smelled like shit. But I'm like, oh, cool. Like now can I compete? Like you're doing such a good job, such a service for keeping the sport professional. Like people hate shit like that, and you're not allowed to coach your students. You're not allowed to cross the sacred yellow barricade. And ADCC, everybody's mat side like it's a fucking rap battle, and it's chaos. It goes off the mats, and everybody moves out of the way, and they're yelling, and like it's such a fun atmosphere. Like, what do you want to do? Do you want to have people to enjoy the spectacle of the event, or do you want to look as professional as possible? There's pros and cons to both, but when you try to look overly professional, like it rubs people the wrong way. There's no soul. There's no entertainment value to it. And it's difficult to create, like you said, like a storyline. And that's where I think IBJJF is kind of getting it wrong. Like even IBJJF Worlds, like no-gi Worlds, like, yeah, great. No-gi Worlds, you're a world champion. But like, it's a title that a lot of people shit on, honestly. Like a lot of people don't look at that as like the most legitimate no-gi title. And it should be, and then it's not.
And especially when their gi worlds is no doubt the gi worlds. You can name your tournament gi world championships, and everyone will be like, no, there's only one gi world championship. But on like, I even think that there are things even happening in the IBJJF that if they were just more publicized, it would get more people to watch. For instance, I've gotten to do a ton of matches now at Black Belt Adult, and people hate each other. It's like more than it's just you're not allowed to say it. It's just like, but I swear to you, everybody that you interact with, it like at all the other belts, it was always fun, and people were super cool, super nice to me. And they were like, it felt like a lot of times I was competing against my friends. You get to Black Belt Adult in the gi, and it could be that a huge majority are just Brazilian guys, and there's a bit of a language barrier too. But it really feels more as though like, man, this guy would rather me die and he get a first round bye than us compete against each other. And that seems to be like the more constant vibe. And I'm like, hey, I wish we could talk about this. I wish we could, I wish people knew how much I don't like you and how much you don't like me. And I think that that would sell way better too. But that is like, it's just not what they're trying to sell. They're trying to sell, like you said, that proper, that gi check. I'll say this. On top of that, everybody cheats in the IBJJF too, especially when it comes to gi check. The gi, I got
shrugging.
Dude, I got gi checked in Indianapolis, and I know the game well enough now. And the dude tries to stick the thing in my sleeve.
Yeah.
It ain't going. And he goes, "Oh, you must change your gi top."
Yeah, I had that in Portland too.
And I
fired my gi manufacturer because of it.
Well,
I'm not joking.
I looked down at my belt and I was like, "Hey, man, maybe you should try again." And he's like, "Oh no, and I'm like, "Nah, I'm pretty sure I've passed with this gi many times." And he goes,
Yeah.
"Okay." And he tries again. He can't stick it in, so he does like the pinch test, and he goes, "Turn around, you're good." And I'm like, "Thanks."
Really,
buddy.
that
Thanks.
worked, eh?
I'm telling you, if you are, and I don't really even feel like when I've done Master 1 that I get the same treatment, but at adult, you can just be like, "Hey, nobody else is passing the gi check, brother. We both know that this is a blue belt thing. This ain't for me."
Yeah.
And they'll let you through. I have a lot of other stories that I won't tell on air because I don't want to perjure myself. But
they'll be watching you next time.
Yeah, exactly. I have quite a few of those, but the best one ever is one of my friends. This is 5 or 6 years ago. Maybe this might have been 8 years ago. One of my friends, he's a black belt doing medium heavyweight. We're at the Chicago Open, and he has first round Keenan Cornelius. And we're like, "Oh man, you've got Keenan. It's going to be a tough match." So my buddy goes through. They actually make my buddy change gis. He goes and puts on his blue gi. He's like, he barely makes gi check. And then he gets through, and we're just sitting there waiting, and we're waiting. Like, this guy's not going to show up. This guy shows up like 5 minutes after the call time to the event.
Keenan?
Yes, Keenan. He shows up in his gi to the event as if like, I don't know, he warmed up somewhere else. He doesn't warm up to compete, but he shows up right when he's supposed to compete, walks down. The gi check guy.
Gi check.
Listen, I swear on my life, the gi check guy looks at him and goes, "Whoa, Keenan Cornelius." And Keenan was uncomfortable by it. He was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Can I shake your hand?" And Keenan goes, "Yeah," and shakes his hand. And the guy goes, "Go on through, man." Keenan's wearing a toddler's gi, bro. He's wearing a Toys R Us gi. And they didn't call him for it at all. But my buddy had to change too. And that's when I was like, wait, I think that this system is broken.
It is.
But I could talk on all of the different tournaments and all of the different ways to cheat at them all day. This episode is brought to you by Kicksite. So as a jiu-jitsu school owner, it can be very easy to feel underqualified for all of the different roles that you have to play as a jiu-jitsu school owner. And this is something that I experience all the time as a coach and as a school owner. For instance, lately, we have been trying to do Google Ads for the first time in my business. And of course, we are going through Kicksite. We're using Kicksite to help us. In these first few months of ads, they still feel overwhelming because for my wife and I who run the business, we really just don't know what we're doing. And something really amazing is last week we scheduled a meeting with our advertising consultant, Hannah, who runs all of our ads, puts everything together for us. And she actually broke down some different steps, some different things that we could be trying to do differently in our business, not just with the ads, but just with leads in general. And that being said, what's really cool about having Kicksite is as overwhelming as being a coach can be, having an entire team of professionals, of specialists when it comes to advertising, when it comes to running a website, when it comes to student management, when it comes to the growth of your jiu-jitsu school, having these specialists be able to help you and train you through a Zoom meeting is absolutely it's unbelievable. It makes running a school so much easier. And that is one of my favorite things about Kicksite, is not just the products that they offer, but the service, the human element that they offer with all of their products. That if you don't understand how to work and how to utilize their student membership software, they'll schedule a meeting with you and they will explain to you how to run your jiu-jitsu school through Kicksite. But not only that, they will help you adapt the way that you like to run your jiu-jitsu school to their product. They don't just say, hey, this product is one size fits all, then you just need it, you just use it the way we say. They say, hey, you have different needs and different goals as a school owner. How about we set you up? How about we set this software up to help you attain those goals? And that is the biggest thing that I can recommend with Kicksite, is it's not just some computer app. There is this human element, this care that comes with signing up for Kicksite that I just can't recommend enough. And so if you are a school owner and that interests you, you can sign up for a 30-day free trial for Kicksite at the link in my description. The link is kicksite.com/Josh McKinney. And be sure to let them know that I sent you. But get in on that 30-day free trial. I'm telling you, it will be a game changer for you. But yeah, I did have kind of an idea of where we were going to go. We haven't even touched on it at all yet. But I had an idea of where we were going to go on this podcast. And you and I, we like to discuss conspiracy theories. You and I tend to have some good ones. And I thought that a good one to even start with, maybe we go on, we don't have to stay on for very long, but just kind of get your thoughts on certain conspiracy theories.
Hold on. I swear to God, Josh, like I really wasn't prepared to do this, but okay. I guess I'm down to do it. Hold on. Okay. Hold on. I got to make it just right, because if I don't, the Chai comms can understand what I'm trying to say. Okay.
I'm glad. So everybody else can put on their tinfoil hats too. So one of the last episodes of your podcast that I listened to was your interview that you did with Denny. Was it Procopos? Yeah.
Yes.
So I highly,
that was a great one.
highly recommend that interview. If you get offended by a guest doing ripping a bong during the interview, then you probably won't like that interview very much. But if you're cool with that kind of stuff, that's a wild one. But it was
wild. I knew it was going to be like that too. And I had people being like, bro, why are you having this guy on your show? And I'm like, for the train wreck, obviously. And like I've trained with Denny before and I've learned things from Denny before. And I was like, fuck, I don't care if the whole time he's yelling, which he did. I'm like, I still want him on the show. Like, I'm not looking for perfect episodes and perfect edits. This isn't BJJ Mental Models. This is EJJP. I'll talk to fucking anyone. Like, I don't care. I'm here for the good times, right?
Well, in that episode, I thought, like, because I was also curious, like, oh man, how is this going to go? That was really what I was excited about. I had been seeing his Instagram posts and I was like, how is this going to go? And when you said something along the lines, you guys were talking about PJ Barch, and you said something along the lines of, I heard that, there's been accusations that Mika got paid to stay at ADCC. And in theory, if you were paying a guy, of course you're going to give him a decision over somebody else. And Denny pauses you and he says, let's go back to what you just said, as if you didn't just say it, it wasn't the last thing that you had just said.
Right.
Like, so you think that Mika was paid to be at ADCC, and he didn't want to drop that. And so I thought a good conspiracy theory to start with was the ADCC CJI, when CJI came in and started stealing athletes from ADCC, they're committing to going to CJI. Do you think that people actually got paid under the table more than the whatever $2,500 that competitors were supposedly paid to show at ADCC? Do you think that guys were paid under the table on that?
I mean, I have no evidence at all, but of course, why wouldn't Mika go and fight for $1 million? He's like the best guy at that weight class in the world. Of course I mean, I think so. And I've heard rumors of like certain guys getting paid to show more than others. And we've seen kind of Craig kind of exposed Mo Jassim with CJI. Like he kind of showed everyone that there's games of favorites here, and that there is more funding than meets the eye. Like Mo is acting like he can't pay the athletes or whatever, but then he starts to pay the athletes more and all this stuff, and he's like, I have no evidence. It's all hearsay. But like, I can't tag or look at ADCC's Instagram page. It's fucking crazy. Like what had happened was, man, this thing's really hot. Honestly, I had no idea tinfoil was so hot. Like, I'm starting to sweat under this thing. But he said, what was it? Oh, they released somebody who I had never heard of, who is now competing in ADCC because one of the top seeds left and went to CJI. So I commented on the like, holy shit, like that is like, is that how thin your skin is? You know what I mean? Like I went to ADCC Worlds and he got bronze, and I can't tag ADCC because I'm blocked, and I'm just like, wow, that's like really lame behavior, you know? So I wouldn't put anything by them. Again, him if he wanted to compete, obviously. And of course he had to make a decision, and he had to make a decision. I mean, I do believe Mika, he probably does believe in like, I want a legacy. So I do want to win an ADCC title, like, of course. And I went back and forth when that whole thing first started. I was thinking like, man, if I had a ticket punch to ADCC, would I give that up to win $1 million? And I was on both sides. I changed my mind back and forth, but man, ultimately money talks, and $1 million is $1 million, right? So, and it's not like Mika couldn't get an invite to the next ADCC anyways. So yeah, I do believe he got paid based on zero evidence.
I like that. I like that. I mean, but the truth is, it doesn't make sense to compete for, at the time, no show money, and then the chance of $10,000, but the most prestige, versus you can compete for $10,001 to show, but then you can compete for $1 million. Like there is no logic behind that. I wouldn't, I'm an anti-steroids guy, but I've said on the podcast, if I was going to ADCC and I got the call for CJI, I'm doing CJI and I'm doing a cycle of everything, bro.
All the gear.
I'm doing all the for $1 million. Come on. Maybe
I know.
Maybe you and I are just shallow people. And but I just can't even comprehend why you would stay. Did you see Flow Grappling was just doing an interview with Nicky Rod, and they ask him, do you regret not doing ADCC? And he's like,
I didn't see that, but that's ridiculous.
He's like, I won $1 million. Like, no,
I know. No, of course not. That's crazy talk. And it's another thing, just piggybacking on our previous topic about IBJJF. I mean, they're testing certain people and not other people. Like they're testing certain podiums and not other podiums. So they're only going to test black belt world's medalists. Yeah. Like if you win adult at the San Francisco Open at black belt, they're probably not going to test you. Maybe they will, but probably not. So it's like there's this facade that they want it to be a clean sport, but at the same time, pretty much everyone's cheating. So why not? I mean, why not just let everyone cheat? I don't know. I don't really see, you could play the ethical card. Like I know you're not into steroids or whatever, but like really, fuck, if you go to the Masters division, everybody's juiced up. Yeah. And they're not testing anyone. And like, I don't know, maybe they should be juiced up, but I want to see who's the best, I'm sure you've heard of that enhanced games, right? So it's like, I kind of want to see what the human body can do. I want to see what the best guys can do. And you're telling me that like like Tynan isn't juiced or Andy isn't juiced. Like, I don't know. I guess he would piss hot, but there are ways to get around the testing.
Bro,
And I'm sure there's favoritism too.
you take one test once a year. Like
Is
they
that how it
call,
works? I don't
yeah,
even
so
know.
listen, the IBJJF, the testing pool, I mean, unless it's been updated in the last year or two, this is how it works. They take a certain number of athletes of the total black belt adult placers at Worlds. And so
Mm.
you men and women, you have 4 placers per division. And I don't remember, but it was basically like it was a third, I think, of the athletes, or maybe a little more than a third, get tested of those placers. And you get tested, it's a P test after you compete, like that's the, so they call it the IQ test, because it's like, well,
Yeah.
if you were still going to test positive now, that just means that you didn't even try. There was
Yeah.
no
You're too
attempt.
stupid.
Yeah. And you see that. And then there's also the luck of the draw too. And a lot of guys just don't get tested anyway. And so it really is that, like, yeah, we're trying. You see, there's a chair over here at the Worlds that says USADA on it, and the USADA guys sit, and I guess they're the ones who get to decide who we give the P test to, which is like,
Yeah. And why are they deciding certain people over others?
and yeah, why? And that's people who always claim it's for money, like, oh, it costs too much to test, but you could at least test all of the placers. And
I mean, one thing IBJJF doesn't have is enough money. You
yes,
know,
exactly.
they're not paying anyone to win. They'll do a grand prix where they'll have like one purse for 50 grand. And then
Mhm.
they're doing how many tournaments every weekend? Like it's such a, I mean, I respect it as a business owner, a businessman. I'm like, man, like it's kind of based how they just like fucking
Yeah.
pretend they have no money and have all this fucking money. But it's kind of like Vince McMahon-ish, right? But
Yeah.
at the same time, yeah, it's not even. It's not as ethical as it's pretending to be, right?
hmm Completely agree. All right, let's move on to the next conspiracy. Let's go conspiracy theory number 2. What are your thoughts on the reason for the DDS breakup? There's a lot of different conspiracies that float around. Then there are some that have had way more traction in recent time. But what do you got?
I mean, we all know the conspiracy about Sonny and Nikki,
Mm-hmm.
allegedly.
Uh-huh.
Um, Allegedly, Craig has a video of Gordon watching his brother have sex with his now girlfriend. That
His
everybody knows
underage
about
brother.
this.
Yes.
Underage 15 at the time. Like I'm not saying anything new. So everybody knows this, right? And it's weird how Sunny has like she's kind of changed her persona online a lot over the last couple of years. Like she used to be just like, showing her ass and saying how much she wants cock and all this stuff. And now it's like it's her doing like a little dance, and it's like pretty innocent. Um, she obviously still wants to like be validated as like beautiful, but she's not like hypersexual like she used to be, right? So that's interesting how that tone changed after the allegations. And I don't think there's anything more weird or disturbing than like having your sibling in the room while you're having sex, especially if it's with their partner. That's really weird. But we all saw during the Andrew Wiltsey breakdown where he was like, Nikki's a coward. He didn't say anything and he deserved it. That was fucking weird. He deserved it. This is before he went to jail and like, I think he's out now. And he even said like, I've seen the video and Craig has the video. The thing is though, is I don't really know what Craig's trying to do. Is he trying to like white knight and say, yeah, these people are legit pedos? Or is he trying to, um, I don't know. Like if he does have this video, then he is breaking the law as well, as far as I know. Like you
Mm-hmm.
can't possess a video like that. So who knows? I mean, Craig is a wild man, right? Like it's hard to get a read on him. Is he a good dude? Is he a bad dude? I've heard some things about Craig that I can't share on this show because it involves people that I know. But let's say I've seen sides through people I know that like, yeah, he might not be the nicest guy in jujitsu. And then there's him like getting tattoos surrounded by prostitutes while doing like drugs and drinking, and his whole style now is like, oh, I'm a drug addict or whatever. Like, I think it's funny. I think it's that entertainment value. And I'm a Craig Jones fan. Like, some of my favorite content is from Craig Jones, and I find him very funny. But like, yeah, we just can't really get a read on him. But if he has these videos, then would he not be also guilty by association for kind of sheltering or aiding and abetting like pedophilic behavior? So I don't know. To answer your question about the split, I think when you have guys like Nikki and Gordon, who are Nikki Rod, I should say, and Gordon in the same room, these guys are like the alpha males, right?
Mhm.
And it's sometimes, man, it's hard when these guys know they're going to end up fighting each other, and like there's egos involved in fighting, and there kind of has to be. Like, I think the whole leave your ego at the door thing is stupid. I think it's better to learn how to harness and suppress your ego at the appropriate times. And I think people were just butting heads. As from what I've heard, Danaher never really gave a lot of respect to guys like Ethan and Oliver and stuff like that. And obviously we've heard rumors of like abuse during training, like slapping in the face and stuff like that. And like, nobody wants to come forward and say, yes, that did happen,
Mhm.
because Danaher is the man, and he's the best coach in the world, right? So nobody wants to go against their professor and say that, but we've heard those things on podcasts, and we've heard those rumors. So yeah, it sounds like the environment was it was just kind of like a ticking time bomb. I heard the split was over something to do with Big Gord's estate after he died. Whether or
Mhm.
not that is true, I have no idea, and it isn't my business. But that was a rumor that I heard, and so there could be something to do with money. And one thing that I have learned is that uh, uh, money, for whatever reason, is sometimes more important to people than family.
Mhm.
So it can cause rifts between siblings and things like that. So that is also a very big possibility. Add to the fact that a bunch of the students weren't happy about the move to Puerto Rico. They didn't want to live there. Some of them liked it, some of them didn't. And yeah, I think over time, when you're stuck and there's you're stuck with the same people and you can't let off steam, all you're doing with these people is just training. I think after a while, it's likely that you're going to start resenting each other. And I don't know, maybe there's no more to it than that. Maybe there's something that we don't know, and maybe we'll never know. But yeah, it's one of those things that's very sad, because I remember watching the DDS guys and being like, this is the best team in the world. These guys
Mhm.
are so fun to watch. And then when I remember hearing the one day that they split, and I was like, oh, this is sad. It's almost as sad as when Eddie Cummings quit.
Yeah.
We don't want to see him come back. Fuck, but it's sad.
That's a lot of great points on that. The things to that I think about that I note on it though, um, man, there's quite a few, but I would say
It's a lot.
it's odd. It is very odd that they both decided after they all moved to Puerto Rico and they decided to split, that they both decided to go to Austin. And that was a very interesting move. And so that still begs the question of some conspiracy theorists that all of this was done on purpose by the evil genius John Danaher, that it was all just better marketing so they could compete against each other. And I mean, let's go back maybe
Is that
to
your conspiracy?
I'm not saying that it's my conspiracy. I'm just saying I could see that you could make good arguments. Let's go back to I've watched this a couple of times, and so that's why I can just pull it off the top of my head because my coach was on it. But the Ultimate Fighter season 12, Team GSP versus Team Koscheck.
That was back when Danaher still had the hair.
He still had the hair, and he was one of the main coaches on Team
Yeah.
GSP. And so they didn't have the first pick. And so what they decided to do, and this was complete Danaher evil genius thought, was that they were going to get a list of names that wasn't their actual list of picks, and they were going to pick the guy that they knew Josh Koscheck was really good friends with and trained on Josh Koscheck's team as their number one guy that they want. So then Koscheck had to waste his first pick picking a guy that they didn't care about at all. And there is a level of psychology evil genius to that. Could Danaher be tricking us all still to this day? Because the other odd thing to point to is the fact that nothing has ever actually come out about it. We've all heard rumors and conspiracies. Actually, the first time I heard that um Gordon made Nikki have sex with Sonny thing was like allegedly. But the first time I heard that was way before there was ever a split. It was, when they were still in New York, one of my friends had trained in New York and came back with that story. And so that story's been around. That obviously wasn't the direct cause for the breakup, because that happened obviously well before that they ever broke up. I have definitely heard the estate thing. And even people, I've talked to people that have heard directly from Craig Jones that was one of the big things, the estate thing. But what if this is all just what if John Danaher is Vince McMahon and we are all just his puppets?
They're actually still like meeting up and training.
They're still all friends. They go out to eat
great.
every Sunday. They all meet every Sunday for lasagna and steaks. They are just big friends. Big friends.
I would love that. I mean, that I actually had never even thought of that. That would be hilarious. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Danaher plans things like that. I think he's just so autistic. If he's not studying jujitsu, he's like sleeping in a coffin somewhere, probably.
That's probably true.
I don't think he's like, well, he's definitely capable of it. Like he's so smart, right? It's scary, but yeah, who knows? Maybe that would be that. He has spoken about, like, you're either like really skilled and you are, you make your money by showing your skill in the cage, or you are an entertainer like a Chael Sonnen, and you can generate hype behind a fight. And those are kind of like the ways that you can, make a big splash in the fighting world. And he's right. It's true. Just like you had said, you should have somebody win the pans and then get on the mic and say, build that wall, right? Like if it's polarizing, it sells. And like Gordon's a prime example of that. But yeah, I don't know if we'll ever really know the truth of why. And it could be that we never know. And it could be that the most likely reason is they just weren't getting along and they didn't enjoy training with each other anymore. From what I've heard in podcasts, the relationship between Nikki and Gordon is like somewhat cordial now. Like they don't hate each other. I've even heard that sometimes they communicate with each other. And I hope they do, because I have a brother. And, I've also seen family split for ridiculous reasons. And the truth is we don't have a lot of time on this world, right? And we don't have a lot of time on this earth. And it's a shame to end relationships with people that you are related to and people you love over small shit, especially money. So hopefully, I would love to get to a point where there can be some kind of a salvaged relationship. Like maybe you saw that picture of Craig shaking Danaher's hand the other day. It was like systematically rebuilding bridges. So like that's so perfect for Craig, right? He's hilarious. But I don't think we'll ever see like Gordon and Nicky Rod friends again, and Nicky Rod. The one thing I don't like about Nicky Rod is he acts like those guys didn't help him at all, which is, like, I don't know, if somebody taught me something, I always feel like I owe them credit and gratitude. I would always, even if I don't like that person anymore, I can't deny that they were like a pivotal role in my journey. And it sounds like he doesn't really acknowledge them at all, and as part of his jujitsu journey. And I feel like he should,
Yeah.
to be honest, because I feel like they probably did help him with a lot of his systems and whatnot. So, that's unfortunate, but we will probably never see them be friends ever again. I remember seeing it like a year ago. There was a Who's Number One show, and it was like someone had put some heartwarming music, and it was Nicky Ryan going around, and the Danaher team was there, and he was shaking hands with Gordon and Danaher and Gary, and it was like, man, like I want to see that. I want to see those guys repair things. Who cares if he made you fuck his girlfriend when you were underage? I mean, who cares if he's a cuck pedophile? No, I'm just kidding. Allegedly, we don't know. We don't know what happened. It's all allegedly. And, one day I would love to go down to B team and train with them. So hopefully they don't listen to this episode.
Don't worry. Nobody listens to this episode. Don't.
Definitely not to me.
This episode is brought to you by Master Any Position in 6 weeks. So 6 weeks from now, where do you see your jiu-jitsu going? Do you see yourself getting better at any position? Most people will say absolutely not. In the last 6 weeks, I don't feel like I've gotten any better. Maybe I've gotten even a little worse. And in the next 6 weeks, I would expect things to be the same. If this is you, I have something that is going to change the game for you. So I recently put together a premium podcast, about 8 episodes, and I call it Master Any Position in 6 weeks. This is a course that I designed about 7 years ago that was to get my jiu-jitsu students from white belt to blue belt very, very quickly. And over the last 7 years, I have refined this product over and over and over, and I finally feel confident enough in it to share it with I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show listeners. What it is a way to find a move, find a position to get good at, and then actually use free content, or if you have instructionals that you've already purchased, that will work too, but a way to use YouTube content and apply it to your own jiu-jitsu game, to where not only will you get better at the position, but you will actually have a deep understanding of the position by the end of the 6 weeks. The beauty of it too is it doesn't stop at 6 weeks. There is an extra week at the end that teaches you where to go next, because that's something that people really struggle with, is they know how to find a focus, they know how to make themselves focus on it for a good period of time, but then at the end of that focus, they go 6 more months before they find a new focus. Well, Master Any Position in 6 weeks also solves that problem. It teaches you how to endlessly progress at jiu-jitsu, how to endlessly find the next thing that you should be working, and find the focus to work on it. The beauty of this course is it can be used over and over and over again. It can be stretched out to 6 months if you want it to, or it can be compacted in less than 6 weeks if you want to. But the beauty of the product is that it is something that will change the way that you yourself learn jiu-jitsu. It will allow you to almost be your own coach and kind of your own guide when it comes to growing your jiu-jitsu. And my favorite part is that it utilizes free content on YouTube and all kinds of other different places. So then you can, without having to purchase anything new, master jiu-jitsu and master any position in 6 weeks. This is only available at simplifyingjujitsu.com. If you go to simplifyingjujitsu.com/6, you can purchase this product individually, or if you sign up for the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu Show Pro, you can get my entire catalog, including Master Any Position in 6 weeks, for a very low monthly subscription. Either way, this product will absolutely change the way that you look at jiu-jitsu. Let's get back to the episode. Yeah. The next conspiracy.
Okay.
I have a bunch of different, let's go with this one. Because bring a little nationalism into this, because you may be like offended that I would even ask this question.
I don't get offended. Trust me.
Oh,
I offend people too much.
Just wait till I bring up most likely your hero, I would assume. What do you think the chances are that GSP was always greasing when he was
very
on?
High.
You do?
Yes, very high.
Yeah.
And if he was, don't tell me John Danaher didn't know about it either. I mean, these are two dudes fighting for very, very high stakes, fighting to the death, essentially. until somebody stops you for money, for legacy. Of course he was greasing. Are you kidding me? I think a more controversial topic is GSP juicing? And it's tough to say. I mean, if you look at him now, he's literally as jacked as he was back then.
If not looking in better shape than he was back then.
Yeah. And if I was him now, like he's probably like 40 or over 40, like he probably should be on some TRT, if he wants to keep training with the best and living the martial arts life. Like he's not a fighter, he's a martial artist. He has always said that. I'm a martial artist. I love to train. Everything in my life is dedicated to martial arts. A fighter does it for the money. He does it because that's his lifestyle. And so to continue that lifestyle, especially after you get, to 40, I'm not going to blame anybody who wants a little bit of help, but I mean, I would not be surprised if he was greasing. It's true. I think a lot of guys do it, to be honest. I don't think I've ever grappled anyone who I believe to be greasing though. So I'm not really speaking from my experience. I'm just saying when the stakes are that high, I would say it's likely. And a bunch of guys that have fought him have said, that they believe that he was greasing. And I think it happens, man, for sure. Especially going like, remember Usamar Palhares fought Nate Marquardt years and years ago. And Marquardt is a training partner of GSP's. And Palhares went for like a heel hook and his leg slipped right out. And then Palhares is looking at like Herb Dean, like what? And boom, gets knocked out as he's complaining. It's like, dude, like you're in a fight. But yeah, like I wouldn't be shocked at all if he was, allegedly.
What about Nicky Rod? Is Nicky Rod greasing?
I mean, Gordon says so, but then again, it's hard to take anything that he says seriously because he clearly doesn't like him.
Yeah.
I don't have a leg to stand on when I say that, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if any of these guys are greasing, to be honest. Like greasing is a fun topic because it's kind of a double-edged sword. If you have a style that has to do with like, okay, I want to isolate this guy's leg and heel hook him, it doesn't help you to grease.
No. Because
you will lose heel hooks. You know what I mean? But if you have a style that is very wrestling heavy, you're trying to initiate scrambles, and your whole strategy revolves around locking your hands around the guy's legs or hips and sliding out of takedown attempts and submissions, then greasing is your friend, right? So I think it's very style based. I don't do it because, yeah, I mean, I do think that it is cheating, but I've thought about it and I've thought like, man, maybe that would be advantageous. But again, my style is more like I want to isolate legs and try and submit people. I don't want to like slip out of things. I want to get friction more than anything. So for me, I've never done it, but I've considered it. Definitely. It's funny, like Gordon makes comments like after Nicky fought Hugo, and he's like, you notice how he didn't just slide out of back control when he was wearing long sleeve rash guard? That's interesting, isn't it?
That's I get the argument, and I get like, they also have always said too that there are ways that you can grease that you would hide it from the initial check too. Guys will
like start sweating.
You start sweating, you put whatever on, and then you dry yourself off. And then the theory is it's in your pores when you start to sweat again. That will ideally come out. So if you kids are listening at home, and you've learned
here's how you do it.
Yeah, and you've learned about cucks, and now you're gonna learn about how to grease. Then this is the perfect ISAJJ and Jiu-Jitsu show episode for you. What about UFC 1 conspiracy? Have you ever heard the UFC 1 conspiracies that the whole thing was rigged for the Gracies to win?
Well, I mean, which Gracie was it? Horian? One of the Gracies is like the purveyor of UFC 1.
Yes.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, if you're trying to tell me that the original, I don't know his role in the thing. I think he was like one of the main organizers of the event. I don't even know if he was like the owner of the event. Like he was promoting the event. If you're telling me that his whole prerogative around UFC 1 was to expose other martial arts and show how effective Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was, And if that's some kind of conspiracy, then yeah, that makes total sense. I mean,
So here are the
makes total
two.
sense to me.
Here are the two conspiracies that I forget what the guy's name is. There's a guy, I think he's a karate guy or something. He's had a few very viral YouTube videos that I've seen where he'll be like, jujitsu doesn't work, and he'll go to a jujitsu gym and get submitted 1,000 times or something like that. But he did a
Awesome.
podcast with the announcer from UFC One. I forget, I don't remember the guy's name is off the top of my head.
Wasn't it the football player or Jim Brown, or was that later? They got him later.
I think that was later. This guy's name is
Yeah.
Bill something, I think. I think that he might have owned part of the UFC or something. I wish I had this in front of me, but the two main conspiracies that he claimed was, and I had to when I first heard this, I had to like rewatch one of the fights because I was like, really? That's crazy that that this happened. But he claimed that the sumo wrestler obviously had the best chance to beat Hoist because he could have put 400 pounds on
Squished
him,
him.
right? And so that was his claim. And so how they got the sumo wrestler out was that they ended his fight early. And how they said that and if you watch, there are two strikes thrown in the fight. He gets hit with a right hand, and then he gets head kicked when he goes down, like you would not believe. It knocks his tooth out. He gets head kicked, and then they stop the fight, and the fight's over. But the claim was that the kickboxer who did it broke both his hand and his foot on those two strikes, and then Hoist was able to easily win. And so that was the first claim. The second claim was that Art the Glove Jimerson, who was I think it might have been his second fight, but maybe it's Hoist's first fight, that came out with one glove because his claim was he was going to knock Hoist out. He didn't want to hurt that hand, and he was only going to need to throw one punch anyway, and he got taken down and submitted. The claim was that he had asthma, and so he requested that they didn't use the smoke when he came out, and they still used the smoke anyway, and that is why he gasped. And so those were actually
Those are fun conspiracies.
Those are the two conspiracies. But what's really funny about the Art Jimerson one is my dad, Art Jimerson passed away a couple of years ago, but my dad actually became friends with Art Jimerson. My dad is a pastor, and he will occasionally preach at this really big church in our area. And he went and preached there. And he says, one day he gets done and somebody goes, "Hey, somebody really like to meet you." And he said, he's walking down the aisle and he's like, "That's the guy that fought Hoist Gracie." And he kind of became friends with Art Jimerson. But from Art Jimerson's point of view, it had nothing to do with the asthma, and it had all to do with the jiu-jitsu on it. So that one is out the window. And then if you rewatch the sumo one,
you think it's an early stoppage?
no, the dude is going to die, bro. He gets kicked harder in the face than you have ever seen somebody get kicked in the face. It was horrific. It was like if they didn't stop that fight, there could have been a murder, and then the UFC would have never existed.
Right.
And so
I don't recall watching that and thinking that was an early stoppage.
Yeah, and that was, I mean, if you rewatch it, he really does get hit unbelievably hard. There was, I forget who it was. It might have been Hoist who even said about that kickboxer that guy hitting him in the back was the hardest that he ever got hit. That guy just could generate so much power. And then bare knuckles was still willing to punch you in the face, which is pretty wild too. But
Crazy.
Really the UFC one conspiracies were to lead into conspiracy number 2, which is that all of jiu-jitsu that we know is based on lies about the Gracie family. And that really,
yes, okay.
Robert Drysdale really, I don't know if you've really seen anything about his second book, but his second book went into a ton of detail about how Ilio really shouldn't even be credited to being the father of jiu-jitsu for us, and that it should be Carlson Gracie Sr. And that his claim is all of the, I don't even know what you would call it, like the things that make up a jiu-jitsu school now were what he was doing at his original jiu-jitsu school then. The way training was done, the way group classes was done. That
he did eco?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he was a big eco guy for sure.
He invented CLA.
That's the
Exactly.
conspiracy.
Yeah.
But they said that his claim was that Elio taught privates and that it was not taught in a way that was, it was basically the list of moves on the wall is where
Mhm.
what Elio came from. And then Carlson was fighting and was actually testing these techniques in real fights. And that is the claim. So where are you at on the, is there a picture of Grandmaster Elio, or are you going to replace that with Carlson?
I don't have any pictures on the wall at my gym. I have been to gyms where they bow to Helio before. Um, I mean, are you saying that Helio didn't do any challenge matches and that he was just like covering for his brother while he was away doing the actual challenge matches? Because I researched the topic extensively because I did some episodes on the history of BJJ, and like obviously I got the mainstream narrative version of how things went down. But yeah, are you suggesting that Helio actually didn't do the challenge matches, or what? I'm not sure quite what the claim is.
So the claim is that the story that you are fed when you start jujitsu, which is that Elio invented jujitsu and
No, that's
then
not true.
and
That's not
then
true at all.
gave that jujitsu to his sons, and then Hoist fought in the UFC and won UFC one. That is the brief history
No,
of jujitsu.
Helio
Give me
did.
the rundown.
I don't believe Helio invented jujitsu. I think that there's anytime when you have like a figure in history, there's like definitely a cult of personality that surrounds that figure. Um, I'm not saying he didn't contribute to it because obviously he did, but I don't think that he invented it. I think anyone can. I don't like to use the word invent when we talk about techniques. I like to use the word discover because
Mhm.
those techniques always existed. Somebody just discovered them. But yeah, I mean, I think they both probably played a pivotal role. Like, what about Tanabe? What about Jigoro Kano? Like, these guys are Jigoro Kano. I think is like a huge figure in BJJ history that we don't really talk about. Because the guy who invented judo, because he was like one of the first guys who started developing systems and the importance of things like kazushi, like attacking somebody's stance before using attacks. Whereas before, like he trained at some Japanese jujitsu schools where it was all kata, and these moves were too dangerous to practice live. So we can't do this move because if you rip a guy's balls off, then you're actually like you're ending his bloodline, or you gouge his eyes out. Now he can't see anymore. This type of stuff. And he came in and he actually made the technique safer by using throws and things like that, right? And then they would just like I credit Elio and even Carlos Gracie Senior with these challenge matches. Like the history of BJJ is all about challenge matches, and that's where we see like what works and what doesn't work. And Jigoro Kano's when he took his students and developed this judo art and took his students to fight the Japanese jiu-jitsu guys in these challenge matches, obviously the moves that you can practice in live randori are more effective than moves you can't practice, right? And that's where the CLA guys are right in that you need live resistance over static drilling. I think both are important. I don't think static drilling is, there's very rare scenarios where I think static drilling is important, but I do still think that it has purpose in
Mhm.
some ways. It just goes to show that nothing can really, when it comes to learning motor skills, it's all about live training. Like you have to put people in live scenarios to actually get results, and that's what he proved. And he proved that systems based approach and things like attacking alignment are much more important when it comes to fighting than just like a random hodgepodge of moves, and then judo was of course further developed by the Gracie family and the guys that came over from Japan to Brazil. Like, man, my history is really foggy right now, but Tanabe, I believe, is one of them, and Mitsuyo Maeda, right? Like these are like Mitsuyo Maeda doesn't get enough respect for what he's done for the grappling world. Like he was one of the biggest pioneers in jiu-jitsu. But I do agree that like, yeah, maybe we give too much credit to some of these guys like Helio and whatnot. And there is definitely like a cult type person, cult of personality around figures like that. And yeah, if you're at a gym where you bow to a picture of Helio, just know that you're a meme, and you should just be aware of it. I'm not even saying those are bad gyms, right? If you do train at one of those gyms, like I'm not saying you train at a bad gym. Like it's great to have culture and tradition, and like yeah, we should pay respect to Helio. I believe we should pay respect to Hoist. Fuck, dude, we should love him or hate him. We should. I always say one of the biggest figures in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is Joe Rogan. Like he without him, I wouldn't know about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And so many people I know who do Jiu-Jitsu heard about it through Joe Rogan, this fucking comedian podcaster, whose base martial art wasn't even Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So it's like, I believe credit is due for a lot of these figures, but to say that Helio invented Jiu-Jitsu or like, developed the first framework for what we know to be Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I don't believe that. I don't, I believe that it was passed down through those figures and it got to their family. And man, when you give people ideas to work with and you say, okay, this is an arm lock, like, let's refine this, after like 30, 40 years with you and your brothers working on this, you're all going to come up with different shit, and you're all going to come up with probably some pretty cool stuff. And I think that that's what happened. I don't think it's one person though. No.
All right. So let me, I just have a few more conspiracy theories to discuss with you, but they're going to take a hard turn from here on out.
Good, because this jiu-jitsu conspiracies are boring. Let's talk about 9/11 or the moon landing. No.
Well, kidding. I mean,
we could talk about whatever you want.
Recently on the podcast, somebody came on and said without any prejudice that the moon landing absolutely happened. And so I just thought that if there was somebody that could rebuttal, that might have a rebuttal to that, you're crazy if you think that there's any chance that the moon landing didn't happen, that it would be you. So, I mean, you got the tinfoil hat on right now. I've never asked you about the moon landing. Just in knowing you, I've assumed that you've at least, looked into it.
Oh, buddy, I've looked into it. I'll just say this, like, every conspiracy that people will have, if you go on Google and try and look into it, there's always going to be people who put information out there that will contradict the conspiracy theorists. And I do believe that conspiracy theorists often look for a conspiracy to explain something that they can't explain, right? Like that's some conspiracy theorists think everything is fake, and that's not true, right? For me, my whole thought on like conspiracy theories in general are they're fun. And if you're the type of person that gets offended by hearing a conspiracy theory, like I have friends, dude. I have a friend who I was talking to him about the moon landing, and he literally said, Matt, you're so retarded that I don't respect you as a person anymore. And I was like, wow, like I thought we were like, I've known this fucking guy for like 10 years. You know what I mean? I'm like, really? Like you can't respect me. And I'm like, you can't even like look at some of the evidence I've told you and like even just think that that's fishy. And he's like, no, of course not. So, after the whole COVID thing, I went through a phase where I thought if I was loud and I tried to change people's minds, that my point would get across. And it had the exact opposite effect. Yeah. Some people loved me for it. Some people hated me for it. And a lot of relationships were changed forever, let's just say. Okay. And a lot of really important relationships to me, thank God we were able to find common ground in the end and cooler heads prevailed. Thank God, because looking back on that now, I realized I could have handled it differently. And I wasn't right about everything. And in the end, if a conspiracy theory is stopping you from talking to like your brother or your best friend or your mom or your dad, like that's really sad. It shouldn't be that way, like I said, family's more important. But when it comes to the moon landing, like, I mean, where do I start? Like, I don't even so the footage is suspect, obviously. I think. I mean, when I look at that footage of them walking on the moon, like the physics don't really make sense to me. But what about NASA saying that they don't have the telemetry data anymore? Like the director of NASA says they don't have that data. So they did the most important voyage in history and they didn't save the recording of that data. And the reason why they say they didn't save it is because of cost reasons. They had to reuse those tapes. So that doesn't make any sense to me. They're saying they can't go back because they don't have the technology anymore. That doesn't make sense to me. You know, this is 1969 we're talking about. The Van Allen radiation belt, you know, and again, there's always evidence if you look online that contradicts all of my points. So like you're gonna have people in the comments being like, Matt's a fucking idiot because of this, and that. Like, I don't even care. Like for me, I try to trust my instinct, and I'm not a scientist, I'm not an astronaut. You know, my dad didn't work on the rockets or whatever, but like I believe what I see. And I think we need to also, especially with like what media does these days, and they try and skew things a certain way and divide people. I think you have to like listen to your instincts sometimes. And you might not have all the answers, but that's okay. People shouldn't be getting offended because you don't agree with them. That's one thing we got to fucking change in this society. It's so gross, to be honest. If you look at the footage of them leaving the moon for the last time in 1972, have you seen that footage?
I have seen it. Where
it blasts off.
And the camera follows them up.
Yeah. So I guess the mainstream narrative, and again, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, the mainstream narrative is that the camera that's panning up and following the craft, by the way, that craft takeoff was fucking, it was like so fake, dude. Like it looked so bad. But again, I'm not using footage as like a crux of my argument, like of how real it looks. I'm just asking who is behind the camera and how is it in 1972, how are they controlling the camera from Earth? And then how does that footage get back to Earth? You know, and also if I'm in that craft, like you can hear them talk while they're in the craft, right? So you can hear as it's taking off, you can hear them being like, okay, here we go. About to take off. Boom. Houston, we're coming home. It wouldn't be like that. You'd be in there and be like, okay, boys, we've never done this before. Here we go. I love mom and dad. And they would take off. You'd be like, holy fuck, this is crazy. Ah! Like it would be crazy. It wouldn't just be like gliding up, right? And like, dude, it's so fucking crazy. Like this all happened on live TV. Maybe it wasn't live. Maybe it was delayed. Okay, how does that footage get back to Earth in any of the moon landing missions? Why is there no like first person view of any of the footage? They set up a camera somewhere and then they go walk around. Like if I was taking moon landing footage, I would have the camera and be like, okay, like this is what I see. Holy shit, I can't believe I'm doing this. Mother of God, this is fucking crazy right now. No, they're like, okay, let's set the camera up like 30 yards away and jump around and hop around. And oh yeah, let's bring a go-kart with us up here. That looks like it doesn't even look functional. You know what I mean? Like there's just so much to it where I stop and I look and I'm like, my instinct is telling me that there's a lot of red flags here. And the fact that we haven't gone back is also a red flag. But I don't even know what to believe anymore, dude, because AI is so good now that like, I wonder if they even did like a first person voyage to the moon and back. I'm worried that I'm now so in denial of the moon landing that my eyes wouldn't even allow me to believe what I'm seeing. And I'm trying to be aware of that own bias. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, like those are the main ones. I think missing data of the voyage is crazy. If you look at Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin like interviews talking about the moon, it's very cryptic. I think Buzz even says at one point we didn't go to like a little girl and you won't swear on a Bible and stuff like that. I mean, is this evidence? Not really, but it's fishy. And I don't have a religion based around my beliefs. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people, they think that if you don't believe in the moon landing, you are a fucking asshole, idiot. Nothing you say is real. You're a crazy person and you think the earth is flat. So therefore, you're like, fuck this guy, cut him out of your life because he's not a believer. So it reminds me a lot of what happened with COVID, right? When we tried to question COVID back at the time. Yeah, like I got a lot of heat from a lot of people because of my beliefs on COVID. And we look back at it now and we're like, so you see that it was fucking stupid. And they're like, no, we did what we had to do. And all it's like, oh, so you still have this like religious belief around that. And for me, my biggest thing when I'm thinking about like topics like that is I just try to minimize my own dogmatic view. Like I don't want to be tied emotionally to certain views. I want to be able to change my mind. And if
Mm-hmm.
they showed me that they, convincingly that they went back to the moon and they did a voyage on the moon and it looked real and it wasn't AI, like fuck, I'll change my mind. Okay, we went. I don't give a fuck. Like it's all fun to me. It's all interesting to me, right? But from what I see, how they sell it, I don't think we went.
I think you brought up some good points there, Matt. So
What's your opinion? Did we go?
honestly, I don't really. The next topic that I'm going to bring up that's way more crazy, I have a very strong opinion on. And I have watched a million videos on the moon landing. I agree 100% that things don't add up when it comes to the moon
Mm-hmm.
landing. I think that you
The
can.
camera. That's
Yes,
weird.
that the camera is super weird. There are just so many different things, and then the not having, having budget cuts and needing to reuse tapes for the most important mission in mankind is absolutely insane. It's not like people aren't stupid
It's
though and
insane.
don't do stupid stuff. But that to me, very, very insane. But on the this
Yeah,
is
and also just sorry, just even thinking about like a camera panning up, like I know friends that work in film. That is not fucking easy to do.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like that's not easy to do in one take if a person is manning that camera.
Yep.
That's not easy to do. So you're telling me that somebody had like a little joystick in like 1972 from Houston, and they're like, okay, we're gonna look up now, and and then how does the footage get back? How does that happen? Right? It's at the very least, it should be you should be able to scrutinize it and question it.
hmm
You,
I
know, you
completely
should you
agree with
should be
that.
able to question it without your fucking cousin saying he never wants to talk to you again.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So, speaking of things that will get people to never talk to you again, I mean, you can elaborate on this as much as you want, but I just want,
Hmm.
give me 1 to 10. What are the chances
I know what you're gonna ask.
that aliens
Oh,
are real?
never
Oh,
mind.
what did you think I was going to go with?
Don't worry about it. Maybe you'll ask it. That aliens are real. I mean, listen, I'm not. I have friends who constantly send me alien shit. They constantly send me this alien shit, and I'm not like a big UFO guy. Some buddies I know are so into UFOs, and they're like, look up in the skies, open your eyes, and all this shit. And I'm like, yeah, dude, like they could exist for sure. That aliens exist. I mean, you look at this universe and you think, how could there not be something else out there? You
Hmm.
know, I would say pretty damn high, but I'm going to up the ante a little bit with another conspiracy theory because this actually is fascinating to me. What other beings on Earth are like humans? Animals? Is there any animals that are even close to the abilities of humans?
No.
No, clearly not. We're totally different, right? So I think a fun conspiracy, allegedly, is that those aliens are their descendants. we are in some way related to them, and that we, talk to me about pyramids, bro. You start talking about pyramids and your brain just starts fucking rolling over itself with how incredible it is. Like,
Mhm.
you look at the pyramids, right? And it's funny, you look it up on Google, they're like, slaves were not involved in the building of the pyramids. They were hired workers. Because everyone's like, slaves built them, which is logical,
Mhm.
obviously. Because how else do you have enough manpower to build those pyramids? Dude, I don't think it's possible that we built the pyramids.
Yeah.
If you look into how the pyramids were built, how perfect they are built, if you had told me that an ancient civilization with technology far superior to ours today built them, I would 100% believe you. I'd be like, "Yep, makes total sense." Dude, some people think there's pyramids in like Antarctica and shit.
Mhm.
There's a lot of weird shit going on with Antarctica that I think we don't know. But like there's these pyramids in different places of the world too. Maybe not as like crazy as they are in Egypt. Like those are fucking insane, but those blow my mind, dude. And I would not be surprised if we are related to some divine creature out there, or maybe it's in the oceans. Who knows? That is like way more advanced than we could ever comprehend. And there's a reason why we are like, humans are special. You know what I mean? There's a reason why in this earth, no one is like us. You're never going to see a beaver build an airplane. I don't care. I don't know. I don't know what your religious beliefs are, if you believe in evolution or whatnot. Like, I grew up an atheist, and to some degree, like, I'm not a religious person. But like I said, after I had children, I started like really asking myself these things. Like, when you have a child and you look into their eyes and you see how like detailed and beautiful those eyes are, part of me is like, this isn't random. And you can't tell me that my daughter came from an ape, that came from a fish, that came from a microorganism, that came from a lightning bolt that hit water. Like,
Mhm.
I just don't see that happening. I think we are special to some degree, and you know what? The best part is I don't need to know, and I don't need to hate somebody for disagreeing with me. It's a
Mhm.
fun topic, and it's a topic we'll probably never know. But I do believe that evolution, as it's sold to us, is likely not true. It's a theory. It's not provable, and I don't even think we came from apes, dude. I don't like. I think we're way ahead of apes. Do we share certain likenesses, and our DNAs are similar, and we have thumbs and we use tools? Yeah, for sure. But you're never going to see an ape build a building. You're never going to see an ape build a car. Like, look all around you. Look what we can build. Look what our minds are capable of. Like, listen to music. Look at the architecture. Look at the logos. Like, it's impressive, and I think that there's a lot of like mainstream narratives, science-based stuff that people basically take as hardened truth religion. And man, if you're that dogmatic with your views, like, just reconsider that, like, maybe things aren't as they seem. So I know that was a whole
That was a
convoluted diatribe about aliens, but like, man, I would not be surprised if we were descendants of those aliens, to be honest.
I don't think I would be surprised either. I think that you made a lot of really good points on that. I even think I heard somebody recently say that every single origin of species that we are given there is some type of miracle required in them. Like a lightning bolt hitting the water and then creating a single cell
Mm-hmm.
organism that eventually is what every single one of us evolved from. And that would be, there's like the theory works perfectly except for that part of it, right? And it's like there are so many different views on where we come from, but like the pyramids are a great example. One, have you seen the stuff now, the research that was just recently released on the pyramids and the structures underneath them?
No, but I know that there is like a ton of shit going on underneath the pyramids. There's probably things that we've never even discovered.
Matt, you gotta look into that, bro. So
Oh
this
God.
is an actual group that is, as far as I know, scientists that have released evidence. They did some type of like LIDAR, something like that, and there are these huge poles underneath the pyramids, like the pyramids of Giza that you should definitely look into that. So there could be more being revealed in the next couple of years about the pyramids. But the other thing about them is the dates in which they were made versus like how a lot of people think about Egyptians now is like, oh yeah, well, the people that were Egyptians that we think of as the Egyptians, they built the pyramids. But we live closer to those people than they lived to the actual building of the pyramids. The pyramids were built way before that. And so we have no idea how people who were possibly hunter gatherers were supposedly moving these 5,000 pound stones
Oh, it's
with
crazy, dude.
perfect precision. And the amount, when they look at how quickly the pyramids went up, the amount of time that they would have been able to spend on each block was something like 30 minutes or something like that.
So let me ask you a question. Is the narrative that these blocks were carved from hand out of one piece of stone, or were they somehow manufactured, like put together?
So
They're carved from one piece,
the
right?
narrative is that they were carved from one piece, and they think they know where they were brought from, but where they were brought from was like exceptionally far away. On top of
Hundreds of
that,
miles away type shit.
yes, uh-huh, and
So
yes,
like I've had like you go on enough jujitsu road trips down the coast. Like we're in the Pacific Northwest, so I'm constantly driving back and forth to like Portland and California, and you start talking about things with your boys, right?
of
And
course.
when we talk about pyramids, a lot of emotions come up for me. I'm in awe that like supposedly man can accomplish this, but like I get goosebumps when I think about how perfect those pyramids are. Like I don't how many stones is in one of those things? Like the Great Pyramid, isn't it like millions? Isn't it a million stones or some shit?
It's something
It's a
crazy. I don't
lot.
know. Yeah.
So first of all, hand carving stones. Okay, how come you when you look at the pyramid, it's not like a bunch of blocks like Lego. It is a or a diagonal line that is perfect running from the tip to the bottom. You're going to tell me that millions of these stones were developed and when it's finished, it's a perfect line. When you actually think about like dude, I start swearing and sweating out of stress when I got to put together a fucking bookshelf from IKEA that is like it's like insert screw from A into B, and I'm like, fuck, I did it backwards. You know what I mean? And these guys, you're telling me that this ancient civilization didn't have internet. I don't even know if they had wheels, to be honest. They didn't have internet. They didn't have electricity are able to do that. And then they lined up the pyramids so perfectly. Like I forget the dimensions, but it's like perfectly aligned to
It's like
uh
to a millimeter or something insane like that.
dude, the more I think about it, the more it hurts my head. And it almost scares me to look into it because that one is so perplexing and so like awesome.
Hmm.
Like if there are humans that are capable of building that, just humans, like let's say it's the ancient civilization of Egypt, that is so incredible. But if you go to Egypt today, I know people who've gone to Egypt. I've never been there. Like the infrastructure sucks. It's like a shithole third world country that is like they really need a lot of help in Egypt. I know there's been a lot of like conflict and stuff there, but to think that that civilization could produce that is insane. Um, to even get those blocks from where they came from, to carve them perfectly, to line them up, to even get them up, to even lift a
Yes.
stone that heavy and get it up, and then get it so it's a perfect diagonal slant. That, man, insane. And then not even to mention, it's not just a solid structure. You can go into it. There's like catacombs and like you said, shit that they're finding underneath it
Hmm.
It's super perplexing. If you had told me aliens built the pyramids, I'd be like, yep, sold. Aliens
Yeah.
built, you know what I mean? Show me evidence and I'll believe it. Like that one, I want to know more about because it's crazy. The more you think about it, the more it actually hurts.
Yeah, I completely agree. That is to me the deepest rabbit hole. I mean, you could always do the aliens rabbit hole too, but it is the deepest rabbit hole to go under is who built the pyramids and why were they built? Because
Yeah.
it's so easy to say like, oh yeah, we know now for sure what, who built the pyramids. We know the time period they were built, but you can't carbon date stone. And so a lot of these theories of like when they were based off of was by carbon dating wood that was in the pyramids. And they're like, oh, look, we found this piece of wood that was whatever, 4,000 years old. And so that's how old the pyramids are. And
Mm,
because,
doesn't necessarily mean that though.
and because our narrative that we have is that you are not basically people were not more than hunter gatherers until whatever 6,000 years ago is I think when the claim is when that started, and then they found Göbekli Tepe, which is I think 14,000 years old or something, and it is this amazing place with all kinds of I think they're called megaliths, but that are also carved into stone basically like they have animals coming out of the stone and they carved them like 3D, not like they dug a lion into the stone, but the opposite. They dug a lion out of the stone. And they have all these amazing whatever those are called. I think megaliths, monoliths, something like that. But these amazing structures, and then they have not excavated more than like 5% of it, but it most likely proves that our idea of when civilization started is totally wrong. And if that idea is
Hmm.
wrong, how many other things were, are wrong? And so,
Exactly.
yeah, I'm glad you got your tinfoil hat on. I wish I would have known. I would have brought one too. I didn't
I
even
was
think
like,
about it.
I know. I thought that'd be funny. You're like, hey, let's talk conspiracies. I'm like, okay, I'll come up with something funny. But yeah, pyramids are insane, dude. I hope to see them one day. But like I said, I know people who've been to Egypt, and they're like, dude, it's like sad. Like it's not a good place right now. So
Yeah.
I hope that things change. But I also am very like fortunate to live where I live in Canada, where like there's good infrastructure. Like I said, I just came back from Mexico, and man, like going to and from the airport in Mexico, you're looking around, you're like, this is like a third world country.
Yeah.
And then you're so many people just crowded in the airports. And then you get back to Vancouver, and it's like one of the nicest airports in the world. It's clean. There's tons of open spaces. And I'm like, man, I'm fucking lucky to live where I am, and yeah, but back to the pyramids, it is it's insane. Do you think aliens built the pyramids? Do you think it was just raw manpower and ingenuity?
My theory with it is not that it was aliens that did it, but my theory is that there was civilization that was very advanced that got
Hmm.
completely wiped out at a point. And I don't know when that point was. I'm
Yeah.
no idea, but I really don't buy the current civilization story. And also when it comes to aliens too, every group of people every group of people has talked about something like aliens. And
Yes.
so to me, I really, I think that there is something that we don't understand that absolutely exists, but I think it already exists on this planet and it has been here for a long time. Um,
Oceans.
maybe in the oceans, maybe something like that, but um, if you really want me to get deep, if you made me bet the house on a conspiracy theory, I probably wouldn't do it. But if I did, it would be that there are more dimensions than just height, width, and depth. And so in our same space, there are things that we can't even comprehend. And
Mhm.
it is the idea is like if you lived on a two-plane world, if you lived in a world that was only height and depth, and it was like a piece of paper, and
Yeah.
you were a stick figure person. If I were somebody who has height, width, and depth, if I were to stick my finger into that world, how would my finger even look to you? It would just be a circle
Hmm.
because you can't comprehend depth. There is no comprehension
Hmm.
of that. And so for me, I really think that there is something that has been here for a long time because I at least that we with the technology that we have, we don't see things coming from outer space to Earth, but there is something that has been here that has the ability to be here and then not be here. And there's a ton of different, I mean, true scientists that I've listened to that have expressed these ideas and make a ton of sense. Even when you look at them from the through the lens of religion and you look at them through those lenses, there are things that maybe are so much beyond our comprehension that we may see them as just a light in the sky that that flies by, but there could be so much more to it than what we realize. That's my theory.
You said your dad's a pastor?
Yeah.
Are you a man of God?
Yes, I'm a Christian, which it's offensive to people to be a Christian and to believe in those type of things. But I
Yeah,
that
who gives a
is
fuck what those people say? They're probably fucking idiots, to be honest. Like, getting offended by somebody, like there is a lot of people who are up, like you talk about Jesus with them, and they just turn off. They think you're crazy to start believing in like religion. They call it fairy tales, right?
Mhm.
Um, we all know these types of people. Again, these types of people often claim to be like the most accepting people, the most the people who are most accepting and the most liberal people, right? But often they will be the most prejudiced towards religion, or specifically Christian. Let's be specific. It's
Mhm.
Christians. My question for you: if aliens do exist, does that change your view on God? Like, do you think God created the aliens, or does that now mean that like your view as a Christian is now somehow not as valid? Does it affect you if you had found out that aliens exist? How would that affect your beliefs as a Christian?
So most likely I don't. Oh, so I believe in a God that created the universe, one God that created the entire universe. And when I think you look at both the vastness and the detail of the universe, I think that that shows a creator that loves creating. And so to me, I don't know why he would need to stop at just creating humans. Not that I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying that that is like, what he did, but I don't see the reason behind saying like, oh no, once he was done with humans, then there was no reason to create anything, or there was nothing that he created before. In the book of Genesis, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And
Right.
then there is basically a pause. Like, is there, then he says on the first day, then it goes into what happened on each day of creation. And to me, what is the extent of that creation? And so, but then also the other side of it, um, if we really were looking at interdimensional beings, maybe some are good and some are evil. That would be your angels and demons. And that would be the kind of that's when I'm talking about different dimensions, I'm more talking about a spiritual realm that I think
Yeah.
it exists and it can affect us and it can affect other things, but it is a different realm than where you and I live right now.
Nice. People ask me, like, do you believe in heaven? Do you believe in hell? Do you believe in God? And I don't know that God is like some figure in the sky, or like a dude with a white beard. I tend to believe that like we all have that inside of us. Like I think if there was a creator that and I'll use the pronoun he, even though we don't know if it's what gender he identifies at. But let's say he. Let's say I think he's inside all of us. But on the flip side, I also believe that the devil is inside all of us. Like I believe that we are capable of. There's spirits of good and evil, and I do believe in evil. And sometimes you see people who do very, very evil things, things that we can't even comprehend. I mean, like look at Chris Benoit, right? Like did probably the worst thing anybody could ever do. And I do believe that both the good and the evil are inside all of us. We're capable of allowing both of those deities to kind of take over us, and it is a constant struggle for every one of us. Like we all sin, we all have the ability to make beautiful things, and we all have the ability to destroy. So I'm not necessarily sure that there's like I don't know if the devil is a horned guy who's half goat, half man, or whatever, and he's down in the center of the earth. I think this is within the center of all of us, and that's why that is like divine logos. Well, like when you look at a building and it's just beautiful, or a cathedral, or you listen to music that just like you feel an emotion inside of you that something is so beautiful. Like, man, that's logos, that's God inside of us, and that's why you don't, no house cat is going to start to make something as beautiful as that, right? They eat, shit, and reproduce and sleep, and that's what they do. But for us, we're here for, I think, a different purpose. Like we're here to create. History has shown we want to create, and just like you said, God clearly, if you look at our world, he's a creature or a figure. I don't know what to call it. He's a deity who loves creating, and I think that humans also love creating, and that's what we've always been, and I think that's what we're always going to do.
Yeah, I think that our belief systems are really not very far apart at all. I think that to your note, I do think that we were made in God's image. We were made, if He is the creator, we were made to create if we were made in His image. And I even think too, on the note that I think we're all sinners. I think that is something written on all of our hearts, that this, and I think a big part of it is having to accept the fact that we all fall short, and that we all, when I look at it, as much as I would love to say that there is more good in me than evil, a lot of it is like, yeah, but I would just get caught if I did this wrong thing. There is so much evil in me, and I think accepting that is a big reason for my need for a savior. And that is I think very, like I said, I think we really do kind of think very similarly on these things.
I would agree. I'm definitely a sinner. I've often wondered, like, man, should I identify as a Christian? I don't know. I could definitely use, like, I understand why people have faith in their life, to give them that, like, that anchor, that compass to sort of help them. And it's something that I never really was like raised with. But yeah, man, like, there are times when I look at my life and I'm like, you got to do fucking better than this. Like and that's when I get inspired when I talk, especially to a lot of my Christian friends, where I'll come away from conversations with them and I'll be like, man, like you make me want to live a better life. You know what I mean? Like you make me want to be a better person, and you highlight things that I wish I could do better. The thing is though, is that I think where a lot of people are appalled by the idea of religion is because of the man-made constructs with religion. Like if you see a church that is abusing things like taking in money, or like, religious figures who like abuse children and things like that. And like, yeah, I mean, those are people who all have sin. Right. But I stopped correlating church with my relationship with God. Like, just because I don't identify with a church, I don't go to a church, that doesn't mean that I can't have like a relationship with God, or I can't have a spiritual side. And I think a lot of people are appalled by the idea of God because of things that the church has done in the past, right? And man, they're not the same thing. It's people are capable of being evil and greed and lust and all those horrible things. So yeah, that's unfortunately here in Canada, there's a huge, and I'm sure in the States too, because the cultures are kind of similar. There's a huge atheistic mindset for many people where they view religion as like a crutch for people. They view it as something basically for people who are uneducated and like they need some kind of a faith. And I really look at that now and I'm like, it really disgusts me to think that, because religion helps a lot of people, and believing in God can help a lot of people too. So it's a very fascinating topic, but yeah, what an interesting discussion for sure.
Yeah, and that is like I growing up in church, you see a ton of evil people and a ton of broken people and a ton of people who abuse their positions as, as leaders in the church. And I have so many friends that fell away from church or fell away from God because of that. And I think the most beautiful thing about Christianity and what it actually means, and people will always put human constructs on it. But when you read the Bible and you see in the Bible, it specifically says that it is about belief in Jesus, belief that Jesus died and came back. And then the proof of that is on the cross. While Jesus was on the cross, there were two other people being crucified right next to him. And one of them mocked him, and the other one said, "Hey, don't you know who this is?" And Jesus said to that guy, "Today you will be with me in paradise." And so anyone who tries to put, "Oh, but then you have to do this, then you must be baptized, then you have to," there's all these different parameters that religions love to put
Mm-hmm.
on this. But when you really do look at what Jesus said specifically, it had nothing to do with that. It had to do with belief. And that is, to me, the most beautiful part, is that the love of God doesn't come from your works, because we all fail. And on top of that, if it did, then it would just be about like, "Oh, well, I'm better than all of you." And that is just not that is not what Jesus preached. He really did. He preached that he was the way, the truth, and the light, and all it requires is belief in him. And regardless of, even if you don't change, even if you still are the biggest scumbag in the world, he is enough to fix that. He's enough to pay that for you. And that to me is the beauty of Christianity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome.
And aliens, on top of that.
Obviously.
So
Obviously.
so Matt, that was really fun conversation. I have nothing more that I think I could add to it. Do you have anything that you want to say to finish?
Not at all, man. It was great. We talked everything from pro wrestling to jiu-jitsu to aliens. I mean, something for everyone in this episode. And
There,
again,
there,
if you're listening to the episode and you're like, "Oh my God, they're talking about religion." I mean, listen, a lot of people can't handle discussions that are topics they don't like, right? And my whole thing now is like, be open to hearing everyone's opinion. Even if there's somebody who like thinks the Earth is flat, it's like, don't hate that person because they believe that. And I often, because I don't think the moon landing really happened, people now think I believe in flat Earth. And when they ask me, my answer is, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I recently asked a friend who's a pilot, who goes up there for his job. And I said, "Is the Earth round or is it flat? Can you see a curve?" And he's like, "I 100% can see a curve." And I'm like, "Okay."
all right.
Like, I'm not going to be like, "But the internet says," but if I also have a buddy who is a flat earther. And when he tells me stuff, I also just say, "All right." Like, it's fun these conversations are fun, and it's not like I would never end a friendship with somebody because I disagreed with them, right? For the record, I do think it's a ball. I think the Earth is round, but I don't know, and I would have my mind changed if particular evidence was produced. I thought you were going to ask me about flat Earth. I thought you were going to ask me
Ah,
about that,
I should have
but
went flat. Next time you're on, when I
next
have my
time,
tinfoil hat, I need to do more flat
yeah.
Earth research though. I'm very
Yeah,
unequipped for flat Earth.
I've seen evidence for both. I will say this, like if you show me an image, not a photograph, because there are none, but an image that NASA has of the Earth and it's round, I don't really believe anything NASA says right now because to me, they don't appear to be like telling the whole truth. But that's what I don't know for sure. I don't know. So I got this thing on, right? Like
That's
I don't know. So all evidence is welcome. All discussions are welcome and they're fun. And I think that's what makes life interesting.
Man, I completely agree. I really enjoyed our conversation, Matt.
Me too. Good times, buddy. Thank you very much.
Thanks for being on the show.